1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays with David and myself. You see,
yes, we are Marla and Dave.
and I, you know what? I'm not going to say that anymore. Duh, I'm Marla.
Yeah, duh, I'm
and
Dave.
Duh, you're Dave. I mean, that's just what it is. Before we go any further, we always encourage you. We ask you, we plead, we request that you join us in our campaign to help us erase the stigma. So it's as simple as texting the word GIVE to 818-698-1021. $1 today helps keep the stigma away. This allows us to continue to bring you amazing content, amazing guests, and we can, one by one, join arms and join our voices and erase the stigma.
Absolutely, you guys. We have a great show planned for you for today. Our guest today is Taylor Coffman. Taylor is an actor. She's a blogger, a Substack blogger. Her blog is called Rare Disease Girl. She grew up outside of Pittsburgh in the Allegheny Mountains, as well as the Washington DC area. She's had a reoccurring role on HBO's Silicon Valley, one of my favorite shows, by the way, and appeared in CBS's Life in Pieces, Rachel Dratch's Late Night Snack, and Ryan Murphy's Feud. Taylor also worked on Jimmy Kimmel Live for many years. Today, though, she'll be talking with us about dealing with mental health issues while being blindsided by a rare and potentially deadly disease. You guys, she's had a lot going on, but she is actually dealing with it very well, and she's going to give us the nuances of how she actually dealt with it. You don't want to miss this conversation. We will be right back after this break.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our $1 Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to 818-698-1021 to donate. $1 today keeps the stigma away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
Listen up. Learn something.
And just like that, as promised, we welcome Taylor Coffman.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Well, I can tell you, Taylor, that you have a bright, beautiful smile and aura, so the story is going to be that much more intriguing because you don't look like what you've written that you have gone through, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would say that I do seem deceptive. Yeah, no, I think I walk through life, people would not expect what's happened to
So
me.
why don't we go all the way back to the beginning?
I was going to say, let's go for
talk
it.
to us about your family life growing up in the Allegheny Mountains?
Well, yeah, I sort of split time. I was born in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's a small mining town, coal town, actually. And I think it's also known for its flood. Like it had a terrible flood.
Wow.
Yeah. People were found like states away, apparently.
Wow.
That's insane. That's a whole different podcast. But yeah, so I was born there, a very small mountain town. And then when I was in elementary school, my mother got a job in the DC metro area. And so I basically went to school.
Now, were you an only child or were there siblings?
That's a very complicated question, actually. Yeah, diving right in. I have one older half brother who I actually didn't really know about growing up until I was much older. And then I basically have two stepbrothers who are like my familial brothers.
Right.
I just mentioned this the other day. Right quick, just explain the difference between a step and a half.
So a step is we're not genetically related. So
Okay.
totally different parents. Whereas a half brother, we share
Us one parent in common.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the stepbrothers, like, we're basically
They grew up. You grew up in the same household, so
they were about 10 years younger than me, but we're hot chocolate and
Yeah,
Christmas
just
mornings and all those things.
all the fun family stuff.
Yeah.
You were raised in the same cohesive unit.
Yes, exactly.
And so, talk to us about that unit growing up. Was it just a regular family life, or?
I do. I mean, I kind of had like two parts of my family life. My own father was, I would say, sadly, like a volatile character. He struggled for a long time with alcoholism, and that was an incredibly disruptive thing. And, my mother did the best she could.
Yeah.
And one day he just like didn't come home.
Wow.
And I think I was like in the 5th grade, and I just remember she wasn't worried because, she was worried, but like we knew he was okay because I think he took the bank account with him. So she wasn't. At least we knew he was alive somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
But and then I just never saw him again. Yeah. And we had a phone call in my 20s at one point. He popped back up, and that's the last time I saw him. And then I have a stepfather who actually lived in the same neighborhood, and so I remember he actually took me trick-or-treating when I was really young because my dad didn't come home, and my mom had to give out candy, and so and eventually he's basically like my dad figure for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, it's as we say, not to take away from the title of the show, but that's like most modern families.
Right. Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
And
Yeah.
you know what I think? I think that this is probably more typical than not, but now it's an open lane of conversation.
Yes.
A lot of these things were very hidden back in the day. So continue to walk us through.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I have a 1-year-old now, and I do look at her life, and I just see like she's just having so much fun, and I think in some ways I'm reliving my own.
Wow.
Like what I kind of wished.
Right. You're providing what it was that you envisioned.
Yeah.
That you didn't have.
Not only that, but you're also breaking the cycle.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, I am. That's for sure. And so, I would say I had a very complicated, growing up. And I think that would have been enough, rough luck for anyone. But, I kind of, I definitely struggled. I think as a child, I just kind of, I would say it manifested in me as like trying to be perfect, like never making waves. I never wanted to get into trouble because there was enough trouble.
Flying under the radar.
Yeah. And then I think when I got into college, it just kind of all like came out my pores. Like I just had so many things I was sort of holding in, and I remember getting a lot of diagnoses around then. But I do think really it was a time where I needed to come to terms with a father who just left and never said goodbye.
Just have to deal with it finally.
Yeah, that abandonment, what that does to a young person.
Now, you said you had a lot of diagnoses. Is that when you were misdiagnosed?
Yeah, well, they diagnosed me with like a whole cornucopia of things.
Yeah.
Depression, OCD, ADD, and bipolar. And at the time, I would say, and I think it's like with any doctor that you go to, they do the best that they can.
Right, exactly.
With the information that they have at hand.
Right. And I do think I was a performer at an early age, and so I was pursuing that. And so I would say, and I think anyone who's listening who's a performer kind of might relate to this, is that there's like a high when you perform.
Right.
And you're sort of like having so much fun. And then when you kind of step off the stage, there's this
real life
coming back to life. And so I think when he experienced me talking about my life, he interpreted those highs and lows as being something bipolar. But upon, second opinions.
yeah.
But because it was serious, I was being medicated for it.
Right.
And that's a serious medication.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, we understand our son.
Yes. So, but I do agree that I do have, and now they just call it ADHD, but I do have those tendencies. And
Right.
I've sort of softened my edges on my OCD, but, depending on when you talk to my husband, but, but yeah, so, I can relate to folks just sort of also like being like, I have all these feelings, I don't know what's happening, and I'm just going to try to like figure it out. And I do think I just figured out that I was sort of on a ride and I needed to, come to terms with the feelings of an abandoned child and an alcoholic household.
Right.
Yeah.
And, levels of abuse in that sense. And, it was difficult. But
And so how long was that process when you were getting these different diagnoses?
Right.
It was college, correct?
till
It was
you-
college.
but I'm saying, how
Yeah.
long was that process till you settled on the actual diagnosis that seemed to fit? Because we've been
Yeah.
there as well, especially when you're going to different therapists and trying to figure out
Yes.
what you're really dealing with.
Yes.
You finally hear the thing that actually sounds and feels true.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say that for me, the bipolar thing, felt more, I don't know if the word is prescient. I just was taking this drug and I was just feeling off. And there were parts of me that were like, is this really what I'm dealing with or is it not? And so I think
So you were able to self-question even in that
yeah,
moment.
I would say within like 8 months or so of being on the drug, I was like, I feel off. And I do think that it's tricky. I think, if you put someone in a freezer, they're going to be cold.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was in a very sort of, you're in a controlled atmosphere and then all of a sudden you're an adult and it's like, good luck to you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think I had a lot of things that I just sort of powered through, and I didn't really deal with them. And I would say that probably by the time I would say 30, which I mean, like a lady sometimes doesn't talk about her age, but
You're safe with us.
I'm a breezy adult woman
Yes.
for sure. And so I would say by the time I was 30, I think I had finally sort of shed some of the I would just call them anchors on my happiness and my ability to kind of find my path through my own like mental illnesses. And just I think about 30, I didn't take anything at that point. I was really like finally I feel like in the driver's seat of my life.
So
Took a while.
So I have to back up. So we hear a lot about a lot of this personality profile when it comes to entertainment.
Okay.
So how did your pain drive, and you can answer this when we come back from the break, did your pain drive your performance? And how did that work that you found yourself here, and especially on the backdrop of what you've now explained is your past? You're going to answer that when we come back. Nobody move. We're going to get the answer. I'm going to get the answer for you guys. Just wait. It's coming. When we come back, we'll have more with Taylor. Be right back.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Some have asked what causes mental illness. As far as we know, there is no single cause for mental illness. Here are a number of factors that can contribute to risk for mental illness.
Early adverse life experiences, such as trauma or a history of abuse. For example, child abuse, sexual assault, witnessing violence, etc. Experiences related to other ongoing chronic medical conditions, such as cancer or diabetes. Biological factors such as genes or chemical imbalances in the brain, use of alcohol or recreational drugs, having few friends, having feelings of loneliness or isolation.
Here are 5 warning signs of mental illness: long-lasting sadness or irritability, extremely high and low moods. Number 3, excessive fear, worry, or anxiety. 4, social withdrawal. And number 5 would be dramatic changes in eating and or sleeping habits.
If you or anyone that you know is suffering from any of these symptoms, please seek professional mental help. And this message has been brought to you by Marla and Dave on Mental Health Mondays.
never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, Taylor, as we promised everybody, we're back, and we've
I wanted
loaded.
to mention something because you said that you were studying theater in college.
Yes,
We
yeah.
kind of lightly went right past that, but you were probably the number one student in your class, if not the number two, at magna cum laude.
Yes.
You were a serious scholar.
Yes, yeah. And I'm a BA, so that includes like math classes.
Absolutely.
And chemistry. And
Absolutely.
biology. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
so
that's a fracturing load.
and
just
with
to
all the
hear
things that you said you were dealing with, I just had to mention that to say that no matter what you're dealing with, you can still be, find ways to be successful.
manage.
And we're learning from Taylor, and we're going to learn more from some of the steps that she took to actually, sort of facilitate that type of success. So now, and I say this with as much curiosity as well as ignorance when you say that you then were hit with a rare, potentially deadly disease.
Did you just jump right past the question she was coming back to answer at the beginning?
Oh, did I? Yes, I probably did.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
okay. You
Help
could
me
I
do.
remember.
Yeah, it's okay. I ask those questions because they're very intriguing because
Yeah.
this is what people hear a lot, and how do these things, the pain transfers, and you were not just a performer, but at a very high level.
Yeah, well, I would say, I started, it was almost like a drug in a sense, because I would say, not to say that it isn't wonderful to be an actor, but I think it's a relationship that's both a beautiful storytelling piece, but then there is this like piece of it that requires winning, being chosen, and getting validation outside of yourself. And I think for me, I was very good at being an actor. And essentially, I think the piece that it really reinforced inside me was this idea, if we really want to get deep, which I'm thrilled to do. But, when I had a father who left me, to choose a career where I constantly needed to be chosen, to be picked, to be, then
replacing that sense of loss with not just validation, but extreme validation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be wanted.
Yeah, to be wanted. And then I think too, another piece of it was just like, because it's a hamster wheel, right? Like, unless you're so lucky and you just get on a show that goes on forever. But you never stop. Like it's
the next thing, right?
Yeah, and
It's a chase.
It's a chase, yeah. And sometimes the chase can feel really, really good, and then it sometimes feels really, really bad.
Right.
And I would say now, I finally, I think, gotten to the point where like, I've taken a break for certain reasons in the sense of having this rare disease and then having a baby. But it's sometimes I do miss the performance, but I don't miss the chase anymore.
Right.
Like that part feels, also our entire industry just shut down for a little while, but it's nice to have a break because all of a sudden I don't have to, sort of put myself out there to be chosen.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just like a deep part.
Man,
of it.
so there's a psychological fulfillment. There's something in that for you,
for sure,
as well, that you recognize.
And escape too, right? You get to pretend to be somebody else.
Right.
And I really, really enjoyed doing that. I think just going into someone else's character. But I do think something really cool about being an actor and how it relates to mental health is because you're always looking at behavior and how it relates to feelings.
Right.
And it's a very deep relationship between a person who's going to embody a character who's going through a journey, and then looking at, okay, well, this is what they're doing. Now let's look at how they're feeling. How are they talking about how they feel? I think that it's very.
Does it help with your own self-exploration?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
For sure. I think because you start going like, oh, well, I'm gonna be this person. So what kind of thoughts does this person have?
Right.
What kind of thoughts?
Right.
Are they racing thoughts? Are they slower thoughts?
So now you're almost examining, almost by trade, by need.
Yeah.
the depths of something else
Yes.
that also goes into the emotional vault.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Now-
a difference
now-
for sure.
And so I did jump the gun. Please forgive me,
Yeah,
but
no,
because
all
I
good.
was really interested and curious about HUS. I had never heard of it
Yeah.
until I read about it. And then we were talking a little bit about it before the show.
Yeah.
Why don't you describe what HUS? Now, I was told it was hemolytic uremic
Yeah.
syndrome, but then you said
I
that's
know, it's-
really
It's a vegetable soup. So I have what's called atypical HUS or hemolytic uremic syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It's also known as, and if this, sometimes how they get when you're at a restaurant and they tell you the
Specials.
salad
Just,
dressings and it just washes
Yeah,
over you,
exactly.
so that's okay. So complement mediated thrombotic microangiopathy. I think I just spit across.
it's
the
okay.
It's okay. I would spit that out too.
So that's the disease I have. It's I in some ways I really need.
Is there a layman understanding for us with that? Because I'm.
Yeah, I'll explain it. I actually have really developed it after a while because I think it's even hard for doctors to explain it.
Wow.
But essentially, because I think when you're a storyteller, you find ways to figure these things out. So I would say that, for example, in your body, you have your immune system. And inside your immune system, you have this thing called the complement system. And that is sort of like an offensive line on a football team.
Okay.
And when you get like an invader or bacteria, it like kind of goes and attacks it, right? And so, but on the team are also refs. Now, my refs are for some reason deciding not to work.
They quit.
okay.
They quit. And so the offensive line is then attacking the coach and the other players. And
The
then
good tissues
the
and things that it's
people
not supposed to
sitting in the
attack.
stands and
Is that sort of like a
everyone's got
cytokine?
popcorn.
Is
Yeah.
that
Running
sort of
rough-
like a cytokine storm kind of thing?
Running roughshod over the cheerleaders.
Yeah, it's exactly. So and it's triggered, right? So it takes a trigger, and a very common unfortunate trigger for this disease is pregnancy and giving birth.
Oh wow! So you really struggled once you got pregnant.
Well,
That was the trigger.
I had a very normal pregnancy.
Wow.
Actually, nothing triggered during the well,
Wow.
that's not true. When I say nothing triggered, nothing that we could perceive
Right.
had been triggered. So like I had I maybe threw up maybe more than the average all the way through, but other than that, I was healthy, nothing, I was getting really good prenatal care, and so no one flagged it. And then I gave birth, and all hell broke loose basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does all hell break loose?
Well, I had a C-section, and then moments later, I didn't even get to like hold the baby. I just started. All I remember is feeling very tired and like wanting to fall asleep. And then, but I'll never forget the nurse's face. She went from just kind of like doing her thing over on the side to then just like looking at me, and she just like.
Looked like a ghost, like
Went white.
flush.
Like it was bad, and then I was being rushed by all the medical staff and my husband. Basically, they wheeled me out. I remember just grabbing my husband's hand and just saying "I love you," and then
And they pulled him away as well.
then I didn't wake up for a few days. I was basically bleeding out, and then. I had one of those wild situations where like I could hear, but I couldn't wake up.
right.
I had one of those, and it was really frustrating because I could wiggle my toes, but I could not like
Get to full consciousness.
wake up. And they all thought I was having a seizure when I was wiggling
Wow.
my toes. I could hear them go like, "Oh, she's seizing," and I was like, "Oh, isn't this the international sign of like I hear you, like, your toe?" But yeah,
But the fact that you can add humor into this situation is something.
it's because I'm Irish. It's an
International
Irish thing.
sign of consciousness.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Man,
so when we get back, now that it makes sense, the blogging and all that you do, because I'm like, what else? Like, what happened? I'm stuck. I'm in it.
Exactly. Well, this conversation is amazing, and like we said at the beginning of the show, the fact that you seem to find a pathway to success with dealing with all of these, unfortunate situations is amazing, and kudos to you.
Thank you.
And we will be right back
with more Taylor.
Coffman. All right. That music says it's poll time. And the poll question last week was, what percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? Now, Taylor, we usually make our guests get up and do a whole dance routine, but we're not going to do that to you today.
No, you've been through enough trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was a dance minor, though. So.
So shall we clear the table?
All right, so Taylor, you get a chance to answer this question. What percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? Is it 29%, 34%, or 47%?
Oh, I'm just going to say 47 because...
You know what, Taylor? Our guest last week said the same.
Yeah.
And you're both wrong. So it's 29%. But hold on, Taylor.
It's fine.
No, Taylor, I know you can handle this. This is the realest part of the show right here. But you're not. But that's not it. Behind door number 2, there's another question.
Oh, great.
So you ready?
I'm
Wait,
okay.
but before the pandemic, I'll give this little tidbit.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, that number was actually 19. It went up 10% post-pandemic.
That it did.
Yeah.
All right. So now, you ready? Next week, for Taylor and our guests, the question that we're asking on our poll is, what is the number of U.S. adults with schizophrenia? 500,000, 1 million, or is there a third answer?
1.5 million.
Oh, gosh.
U.S. adults in the United States which are diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Diagnosed? Oof. What's the first one again?
500,000.
500,000, 1 million, or 1.5 million?
Gosh, I'm going to say 500,000.
Okay.
All right. Well, now that's you've said, and here's the horrible part about Marla and Dave in the show. You're not gonna know till next week.
Oh, no.
Taylor.
I'm going to be Googling this.
We want to remind you guys to text the word GIVE to 818-698-1021 and support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign.
And remember, all of you can vote as well. Go to our social media, cast your vote. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about this background music in a minute. I'm getting a crouching tiger, hidden dragon from the first situation. And then the little pole dancing thing is like I expect a little.
Well, you know, I want to keep it fun. I want to keep it fun.
I'm just saying, there's things that these are just the things that randomly go off in my mind, and I think that Taylor's the perfect guest to hear me express myself. Okay, back to you, Taylor.
Yeah.
So Taylor.
Hold space. I'll just hold space.
So since we don't have that much time left, how did you actually realize that this is what you were dealing with, other than them saying this was your diagnosis?
Yeah, it took a month. It took
A
a
month,
month to get
wow.
a diagnosis. I mean, by the time I left the hospital, the list of things that had happened to me was so long. Heart failure.
Wow.
I had a clot in my lung, a clot in my heart, clots all over my kidneys, clots all over my pelvis.
Wow.
I had uremia. I had pneumonia. I had sepsis. I was on a ventilator 3 times. It was, and that's only just like some of it.
So you do know that you're a miracle, because all of those things are fatal independently.
Yes. Yeah.
At the same time, every mother knows dealing with being a new mother has its own issues and getting used to that. So you were dealing with all of this at the same time.
They called me over at Cedars. They called me the mama.
Wow.
Because I was there for so long, and I just was like, I have to get home to my baby. Like I have to. I basically was just having a lot of like talks with God, and just was basically like, I'm not going anywhere.
This is my reason. You're
yeah,
gonna have to hold on.
Yeah. And so I
love
got
that.
home, but I was on dialysis then for 9 months. I'm actually just had a year being off of dialysis, right? Actually,
Wow.
this week. I got my port out a year ago this week.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
That's a good anniversary to celebrate for sure.
Yeah. I may not be able to stay off of it. I have very depleted kidney function, so I have like I'm sort of in the gray area between.
But you still have some function.
Yeah.
There you
I'll
go.
probably hang out for a little while before I have to go back on dialysis again.
Right.
So we're just grateful for every
Yeah,
year.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I do really great. I'm on a very powerful medication, and yeah, it was I'm not gonna lie, like it was really, really,
Well,
really.
I got to ask
hard.
you the most important question for this show.
Yeah.
Tell us your key to mentally balancing during this type
Yeah.
of I'd like to
Upheaval.
hear that.
Yeah, I had well, they were very serious about making sure I left the hospital like with a therapist, because I had gone through so much stuff in the hospital, and a lot of it was, mental, being on the drugs for that long, and ICU psychosis, and I had all sorts of things, and so basically I left with a therapist who I saw twice a week because I also had trauma.
Right.
So,
Straight PTSD from all of this.
So
dealing with.
postpartum trauma, I had like the whole kit and caboodle. And so, they got me also on Zoloft. And I would say like that just took like the edge off of all of this. But I think I also came back, I think about like, it was pretty, there's so many unknowns. Like I couldn't walk when I left the hospital, and it was just like I would have tiny goals. Shower by myself. I couldn't shower. I couldn't wash my own hair, but bathe myself basically because of a port. You can't get
Right.
wet.
Exactly.
And being able to carry the baby. I didn't get to carry her until I was cleared. And so, because I couldn't walk, I was very weak, and also on painkillers because I had 4 abdominal surgeries. Don't even get into that. So I know I keep just like saying
Wow.
things, but it's really true.
Wow.
And so I just was like very I'm kind of goal oriented. So I just made like if I just get to this goal and get to this goal post, and every day the baby was just like the happiest baby. She was so happy.
Which is a blessing.
Yeah, and she just had no idea anything was wrong. And I think it was also a journey to motherhood for me.
Right.
Because it didn't look like the picture in my head. So I had to sort of come to terms with that and know that like being a mother isn't with the picture in my head. Like I'm a mother.
It might be a little package, but she was already full of grace, giving you that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I would say, I was very, very, I'm a miracle and the baby's a miracle. I mean, we found out that she had clots all through her cord. The fact that she's here is a miracle. And I do think, but something strange did happen, I think, afterward. And I remember it almost, I don't know, quite poignantly. I just felt like the roof of my like happiness, of my ability to be happy was like blown away, like into the stratosphere. Like I couldn't understand why. Like I at that point, like I had maybe like, they were like, life expectancy is like not so great, especially when I got out of the hospital.
Right.
It was really not so great. And so but I kept having these like moments of just like such joy. And I was like, where did this even come from? And I do think like going through an experience like that, all of a sudden, like walking down the street, was
The fact that you could.
Like brand
You
new.
no longer took anything for granted.
No, I took nothing for granted.
Wow.
And again, like before, I think being grateful was a practice.
Right.
It was a thing I had to be like, okay, now we're gonna like write in our gratitude journal. But I then was like, oh wow, like even just breathing, like because I had so many
You're here,
lung
right.
issues, just like breathing was like an act of survival and joy.
Yeah,
and
you were grateful for everyday
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I didn't. I mean, I still kept taking this off, but I just was like, wow, this is an experience that I did not anticipate in this all this darkness of like going through this experience and the trauma of it, and then to have this ability to feel just the vibrance of life was like
Wow.
really truly special. And I still feel it. Like I just feel like I'm also just feeling like I don't know, like there's like a new calling for me.
Right.
And
I
I'm
love
happy-
that.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Taylor,
what would be
the-
your parting message that you
well,
could?
and I also don't want you to leave before you make sure that everyone knows how to find you.
Yeah. Yeah, Substack Rare Disease Girl, and you can also find me on Instagram, Taylor Coffman Made. Yeah.
I
And
love
TikTok. I'm on the TikToks too. I made those.
Like, okay. So Taylor Coffman
Yeah.
Made, M-A?
M-A-D.
D-E.
Yeah, like man-made.
Man-made,
Yeah.
okay.
Taylor
Taylor
Coffman
Coffman
Made. I love
Made.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Never enough time, especially, we could go on,
I know. Yeah.
But you know what ends up happening? Tony turns the lights off on us.
Yeah, that's totally all right.
And
So-
while the music is playing, quick, 20 seconds, what would be your parting message?
We get so scared about these things happening to us in our lives, and we don't anticipate how they might actually also help bring us joy.
Instead of being something negative, it could also turn into your superpower.
Yeah.
I needed to
I
hear
love
that today. I'm actually searching for studying joy, studying happiness. So this was a divine collision
of
for
course,
today
it
for
always
sure.
is.
Taylor,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Our guest has been Taylor Coffman. Her story is amazing. Again, on Substack, Rare Disease Girl. On Instagram, Taylor Coffman Made. You don't want to miss any of her stories. She's a great storyteller and a great human being.
And
Thank you
find
so
out
much.
if she's a great poll answer question query. Show up next week and hear if Taylor landed next week's poll. See you then.
See you guys next week.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.